I'd like to take a minute to acknowledge that this presentation is taking place throughout the unceded territory of California, home to nearly 200 tribal nations. Today, I am speaking to you from Kitch Tongva ancestral land known as Long Beach, California. We acknowledge and honor the original inhabitants of our various regions and encourage you to learn more about the tribal nations that are indigenous to your area. An excellent source of information and learning more about the tribal groups that are on your that are in your area. Brooks can actually drop the link into the chat so you can take a look at the map of the native tribes that are found throughout California. And we definitely encourage you to take time to learn more about them. I'm going to introduce our speaker now. Today, our speaker is a UC-ANR colleague, Claudia P. Diaz Carrasco, she is a 4-H youth development advisor and a California naturalist instructor for the Southern California Mountains Foundation Urban Conservation Corps of the Inland Empire. I think she wins the prize for the longest CalNat name for a course. Since joining UC-ANR in 2014, as a youth development advisor for 4-H, Claudia has provided expertise, visibility, and a keen understanding of local issues, particularly in the areas of cultural competence, social justice, positive youth development, and science literacy. Claudia's work focuses on piloting new models to better serve underrepresented population and places, including Latinx and low-income youth and families in Riverside and San Bernardino counties. She's interested in the interconnectedness of culture, nature, and education. In partnership with the National Park Service, she developed a bilingual guide to help youth and families explore Camp Number 59 in the Juan Bautista de Anza National Historic Trail Expedition. Claudia also plays a key role in helping the Urban Conservation Corps develop greater capacity to engage youth of color in environmental education and stewardship. In this talk, Claudia will draw from these experiences and this expertise to present the findings of one of her latest research projects, which identified new strategies that foster inclusion of diverse youth and families in programs. So without any further ado, welcome, Claudia. Thank you, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Elliot. And please welcome me. Just thank you for that great introduction. You're right. It's not only the longest CalNat course, but my name itself, I tell people it's a telenovela name. I have Claudia Patricia Diaz Carrasco. So you can just call me Claudia to keep it simple, everyone. As you are noticing, I'm not originally from the US. I do have an accent, so please at any point of the presentation, let me know if you need me to slow down, to repeat stuff, to write in the chat. I won't get offended. My main goal being here is that we all have the same understanding, that we can support each other as we do the difficult job to try to engage diverse audiences into whatever programs we do, whether it's putting together a course or else leading a nature hike or doing a citizen science project. We want everyone to be welcome and to come, or at least I want everyone to feel that this is a good place, that nature is a safe place for them, and that there's really easy ways to start connecting that. So I know that if you have taken the course and you are here, it's because you're interested in doing that. And so throughout the presentation, if you have any reactions, make sure you go to the down of your screen. Those are your Zoom controls. All the way to the right, you will have a reaction. So you can put I'm going to show you some thumbs up, you can clap, you can put hearts, or you can even put surprises, right? And that will just help me a lot, making sure that you are following through and that, I'm not talking to a whole set of black squares. So that being said, I'm just gonna go start. And again, I'm not gonna thank you so much for the great job of introducing myself, but we're here to find what works. We all are busy people. We don't wanna be doing random stuff that has no result. We really wanna know what do we need to do to be able to other people that we usually don't engage to come to our programs, right? So you already know a bunch of stuff about me. This is some of the degrees that I was able or privileged to go, into an institution to get. But this is something that I really personal, and I'm going to share, this is another type of introduction. So this is me leading one of those pilot programs in the Camp 57 of the Anza Trail with a bunch of kiddos from Riverside and San Bernardino counties. And again, part of like being successful engaging people from different cultural backgrounds is getting to know them. So I'm not a voice for all the Latinos in California, in the region, not even in Riverside City, right? But this is some stuff that I can share about my personal experience, how I was growing up, and then you can consider as you try to approach a different audiences. As you can see, my list is really just focused in Latinx youth, but my hope is that these principles could apply to any other minority ethnic group, right? Um, so just particular, like I kind of speak to how I grew up. You know, I do identify with Latino, Latina, but my preferred term is Mexican. I tell people that I am 100% Mexican because I didn't emigrate into the US until I was 22 years old. So some of you might or might relate not to that. And just growing up, at least just speaking off of Claudia, like family is like really important to me. Like even today, people freak out. I'm 32 years old, I'm single, and I call my mom every day. I don't have any psychological problem. It's just like, you know, working like 2,000 miles away from Mexico City, where my mom is right now. We talk every day about random stuff. What you have for breakfast? Like, did you wake up every day? You know, so that's how important my family is. I also have this sense of respect. And again, this is something that many Latinos have, but I'm just talking for what I do. And respect is not only like, you know, like being polite, but also like acknowledges, you know, things like saying goodbye or hello and please and thank you are really important to me. So I usually just to sharing a little bit window into my world, like if I receive an email and you don't put hello or good morning, I might get offended. I just think that that's rude just because, you know, that's the way that I was educated and grew up in. And also there is this sense of respect that people that are older than me, I'm called to show respect, you know, and the English language doesn't allow us to do that, but the way that you call someone that is older than you can call it by usted, which will be the formal way, or you can call it by tú, which is kind of how you call your person. Anyways, I'm not expecting you, but I'm just sharing like some of my personal experience, hoping that if you are working with Latino professionals in your communities, you might know that this might apply to them as well. And then personalism is something greater than going polite. And so personalism is really taking people as individual, and this is more the sense of people over matter, you know. So I'll sometimes in my work, I will sacrifice getting something done by dedicating time to getting to know the person that I'm getting stuff done with. And that's just kind of sparks to like me growing up in a collective culture, recognizing that all of us has different levels of power in our organizations. And so taking time to listen to the people that might hold less power might be important. And again, I don't focus on the rules. I focus on the relationships, because I think that when relationships are built in trust and understanding, then you don't need rules. Right? So that's kind of my wishful thinking. And again, I don't expect to cover. There is a bunch of research in Latino cultural values. I'm just telling you what, if you were going to start and you call me and say like, Claudia, I want to do like a bilingual course. I need people that need content in Spanish. You know, this is kind of the way that I would like to be approached, right? And I see some of you are sharing some of your experiences in the chat. So feel free if you can relate to any of these of things. If anything that I say is just like too weird for you and you have no clue what I'm going into, feel free to put it in the chat. Again, I don't get offended. I do this job intentionally, trying to bridge the gap of different cultures. We all have different cultures. We all respect other cultures, but we need to know how to build those bridges. So anyways, again, these are like fancy terms. You can look it up. I'll share the presentation to you after that. So everyone, are you still following me with? Because that sounds good. Okay, perfect. Thank you. And again, I know it's not the typical introduction from a professional in the dominant white culture in America, but that is important that I like to know who I'm working with. So that's a little bit about myself. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to share with you some resources that might support you at any level or at the organizational level to how to reach diverse audiences. I also want to increase the understanding that you have of the tools that I'm giving you. And then you can afterwards go ahead and do it you know, on your own. But my main goal today is that you take one personal item of everything that I said, and how do you reflect on those, or how do you apply it when you work with people. So the first thing that I'm going to ask you, and again, this is going to be like a fun activity. We have been talking already like for 10 minutes. So, and I'm going to ask you, like, how familiar are you with the resources available to better support partnerships with Latino populations with you live? You know, we recognize California is a diverse state, but we know that engaging like all these ethnic minorities at once might be really challenging, right? And so like for today's presentation, I ask you guys to be open, and if you have an idea of, just make this self-evaluation, like I'm really familiar, kind of in my region, in my state, where Latinos go shopping, or where Latinos go, to church, or if they go to church, or don't go to church, right? Or like kind of where the places in my community that offer translation services, or places that are predominantly serve bilingual. And again, it's like just find yourself like, I'm a red or a green, like whatever you're in the scale. And that's important because they call me, and this happens being an advisor. Part of the role that we do for the university is helping organizations build their programs, right? And I'm totally love that you are entering where you are at the chat. So I'm hoping that those 2 stars of 3 stars become 5 stars by the end of the session. And we're going to do an activity for you to be able to do that. And so the reality is that Latino youth are diverse. You can find someone like me, which is a professional, with grew up in a 2-person household. My mom and my dad were with me until I was 15 years old. I completely bilingual. I have 2 master's degrees. I look brownish, I think. I don't know. You can judge, but you are going to find Latinos that might have like other skin color, other levels of education, different socioeconomic status, different skin tones. Some people are documented or undocumented, and again, just a little bit window of how it's being an immigrant in this country. Like, I'm documented because I have a working visa, but I don't have a green card or like a citizenship. So like if the police stop me, they usually tell me, Claudia, do you have a green card? No. Are you a citizen? No. And then like everybody freaks out, because I was like, then I go into this long explanation of how I'm legally in the US without falling into these categories, right? Those are things that happen like in the day to me. So Latinos youth are diverse. So if you're going to work not only with Latino youths or families, you kind of need to get to know how the picture in your community looks like, right? So this is when things are going to get interested, because they told me you are super participative. So we're going to go and make an activity, and we have around 10 minutes for this activity. We're going to have you go into this link, which is a Jamboard. And so you have received the link in the chat. I sent an email. Brooke just put it in the chat. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to ask you to go into that link. And please take a minute just to open that. And then we're just all gonna brainstorm together, because I recognize that this job sometimes is hard. And I see some of you are already joining in the chat. So don't put anything yet. I'm just gonna wait for my instructions. I'm changing my screen share. So this is where you're gonna look into the Jamboard, right? And so the first slide, let me do the laser. The first slide, I put a sticky note on the side because that's Riverside. That's a list that I did with my staff before I start doing any programs for Latino youth in Riverside County, which is one of the counties that I work with. The second slide has a Sacramento one, because I recognize like Southern and Northern California might have different type of services available, institutions, all that stuff. So the third slide has a California sticky note. So if you don't want to focus on a particular region, you can just use that. But if you say like, everybody from my organization is from like, whatever other place, you can use any of the other slides, just put a sticky note. So let us know, I'm going to do it for Modoc County, or I'm going to do it for the Central Sierra. You can pick whatever. But if you don't want to take a pick, just use the California one. What are you going to do with this? I want you to just brainstorm for the next like 5 minutes and say like, I know this business that, it might be like a bakery, a Mexican bread bakery that is in your region. And you might never have a step foot on inside, but it exists, right? Or you can say like, well, there is this park that I see people playing soccer on Sundays. So you're going to put the name of that place in physical spaces. So now go ahead and pick whatever frame you want to work with. If we all work in the California one, that's perfect. And then just start putting things in there, right? So I'm gonna keep my screen share, but say it's like, these are the associations. You might have like a Rotary Club in your area that that some Rotary members are Latinos, put the Rotary Club there. Or you can have like an Elks Lodge. You know, or you might know that there is like this Day of the Dead festival in your region, that you put that in community festival. So just start filling this. And again, the whole thing is that we brainstorm. So don't stress about it, putting in the same category or like picking a region. So just start putting the stuff in there. And I'm gonna reshare my screen, but I just wanna see your face. At this moment, everybody has an ability to go into the Jamboard? Are you good? And if you say like, Claudia, this is too complicated, just make your input in the chat, and then the CalNet team and I will like copy and paste it into the Jamboard. So again, find cultural settings, institutions, individuals, businesses, physical spaces, community festivals that you might find Latinx people in your community. Okay, so as you keep adding these, I'll share my screen. So if you have the Jamboard open, let me go ahead so you can see that this is getting really crazy, but I'm okay with messy. So if you don't know, if this is the first time using Jamboard, you might see now a red dot in the screen. To the left side of the Jamboard, you have different ways to ask. So the one that I like using is this one that says sticky note, and it's just a square with a line in the middle. And so you click that, then you're gonna pick whatever color you wanna use, and then you can put test, right? And then that's gonna create the sticky note. And then you see, I'm gonna start moving it for you guys. So you see Sonoma County, just pick green. But there are like many of them. Again, don't stress about it. The idea is that we all have Toro County Park. And then just be ready. You know, if you put any of this, I might ask you later on, you know, like who put Toro County Park? I want to know, like, where's that? In which county is Toro County Park, right? I think it might be Sonoma County. Just gonna check if people, I see some of you put some stuff in the Sacramento one. Oh, wow. Perfect. And I see LA. Oh my gosh, whoever is doing LA, I'm pretty sure there is way more than this. So I'm gonna challenge you guys. I see, oh my gosh, I love this Pomona Valley area. People that put it in the chat, I'm gonna go ahead and pull it in the LA area. And again, I don't want you guys to be stressed about technology. Someone is asking in the chat who is in Alameda. So, oh wow, Bay Area, perfect. Monterey Bay, so exciting that we live in a state so diverse. Amy, you know, there is a Bay Area one, so I don't know if that's a slide number 6, if you want to contribute to that. Elizabeth, you're in Riverside. That's awesome. I'm gonna add those into the Riverside one. And you know I'm challenging you guys. This all. Let me move this text. I'm just gonna eliminate it because it looks ugly. Yeah, I love, guys, that you are rearranging all these sticky notes. I'm just gonna finish and put it the ones in the chat. Cancel. So physical spaces. Then we have some Pomona Valley. James, are you cool with me putting your input in the LA area one for Pomona Valley? You can unmute yourself and let me know. Thank you so much, Nate, for adding your. And so people is just joining us. So if you're joining us, we're completing an activity. So just hang in, and then you'll have an opportunity to do it, you know, at the end of the session during the Q&A. I have so many really interesting comments in the chat, so I'm going to start addressing them. But again, if you have more organizations, which I'm sure you do, I'm showing you like different boards. This is like awesome that you guys know so many stuff. So some of the questions that I have in the chat is, and I'm going to stop sharing so you can see my face. So I'm not sure how to do it. Day of the Dead celebration of Hansen Clinic Garden, Baile Folkloric UCD. So yeah, some of these, and again, don't stress about the categories, like probably the Baile Folklorico could be a cultural heritage, or because it's linked to UC Davis might be kind of like an association, perhaps it's a student organization that is putting it together. And then also like the Hansen Clinic Garden might be a physical place. There is like, and that's kind of the amazing things about doing CalNat, that sometimes we get to do it in different institutions, right? It could be like the UCR Desert Campus, or any of our like UC campuses, but we can do it at any place that we have like a classroom and a projector, like a good hiking trail. Some of you guys may be like well enough to just do it in the outdoors. So I just want to take this moment to thank each of one of you for like navigating with me through the Jamboard, trying to think through this, to these things. And I'll get back to the Jamboard like right at the end, like kind of for our debrief. But just to make it easy in everybody, I cheated a little bit and I have one that is kind of ready so you guys can see that. So how are you doing? I know, I usually when I do this in organizations, we take half an hour because, you kind of spend hours doing this. Does everybody have a chance to at least do like one input in the exercise? You can give me a thumbs up in the camera or like a reaction. Perfect. And some of you, all I see is you guys typing. I'm so excited that you guys are willing to do this process with me. So you're welcome to keep typing, but I'm just gonna continue doing this, right? So once we go into the nitty and gritty of like finding these physical spaces, kind of what's next, right? What else can happen? So this is one actually for Sacramento. So some of you people that are like in that part of the States might have heard about it, but they might have not. This is a process that we did with a community organization that was trying to do this process, was trying to bring Latinx people into their region. And they find out that El Centro Road have some farm stands, that they have sent people from this cultural background in there. They also know that they have a Cesar Chavez Plaza, and there is a specific community gardens. And I think we all have pretty idea of that, depending on where we live in our cities, kind of there is the type of people that we find. But there is also some businesses that seems to be tailored to the Latino community. In these times, like Latino 97.9, like in Sacramento. Do we have anybody in the call that might be familiar with this station? Honestly, when I moved to California, I have no idea that there was like so many Spanish speaking stations in the radio, right? But that might be like kind of against things. So this is, of course, is like super simple process, but what is important is that it's like a systematical process. You're just like following and you start going with what you know. If you start and you are like, I have two things and then I don't know where to go, that's okay. Because the idea is like that you find someone, near you in your organization, and you might walk into, as I was telling, like that bakery, that plaza, and just like start asking questions. And I'm gonna show you today what is an appropriate way to do that. So I'm gonna go ahead, and the list for these organizations, as I was telling you, like it can get really messy. I'm gonna share the Jamboard because I think that's really encouraging that you guys know a lot. And the reflection for you is like, which of these pieces was easy for you? Like all the one that we're doing in California, we have like parks, blah parks. We think that this place is really crowded. Institution seems to be really crowded. But then this cultural heritage, if you see, we only have like a couple of sticky notes, right? If we go into another area, same thing. We know a little bit of businesses that might be in LA to see that. Some institutions, but like individuals, we know like some mariachi, but do you know the leader of the mariachi, right? So what I'm going to ask you to think about is like, which region was like really easy for you to feel, and then which region was really hard, right? And usually individuals is the hardest one, right? But unfortunately, we need to have that one person, that cultural broker that is going to open the doors for us to be able to work with the whole community. Are you guys following me so far? Perfect. Okay, so this is the most important thing. So take out your pencils or open a Word document, or like just open big your eyes and your ears. So a list of like random organizations is not helpful. You know, like it's good to have a sense of what's around you, but then you need to dig deeper, right? If you're really committed to do this work with diverse audiences, it's important for you guys. And I sent you already in an email, but we have like an Excel document, right? So basically, once you identify these physical places, these institutions, these organizations, it's like, what's the name? Is there a contact name in the website? What is their mission? What are their core activities, right? If they are offering programs for youth, what's the duration of those programs? You know, like if they have a staff or they are volunteers. A lot of us work in community-based organizations. So all this information, the way that I find it out for my county is using, like, again, things that I already knew. Also, like collecting flyers in community fairs, local coalitions, like initiative meetings. I think all of you might be familiar with those, like PTL meetings, all that. But then at some point, I didn't have enough information. So I just went into GuideStar, right? And GuideStar is like a nonprofit database that is free for everyone to use. And I just put these terms. I put like youth, Latino, families Chicano, Mexican, Hispanic, children, kids, immigration, family resource centers, right? And that just helps me to give like a real idea of who not only was Latino in my community, but which organizations had the capacity to work with Latinx youth. You know, like another way to do that is doing 211 or just Google it, right? And again, at this point, we're just trying, and I'm envisioned you guys, you're like kind of dating, you know, you're saying like, who is around? Many of you might be rating already, or many of you may be like 20 years since you last dated, right? But the idea when you first date someone is like, you kind of know their name, you know, that you go for a coffee and you're just trying to make a sense if this would be a good fit for you guys to work with, right? And so sometimes it's okay if it's not a good fit. That doesn't mean that you are discriminating against, that doesn't mean that you are not open or doesn't have the competence. Sometimes it's just not a good fit. So that is important for you to do your homework before you actually go out in the community, try to reach of these organizations. When it really gets you like a foot in the door, and when I'm told you like once you get to the step 3, which is the 3 tool, then you are into the community. And that's how I started my course with the urban conservation core. Again, it was not the traditional audience that I work with. Like, you know, most of the course members that I work with, they have never stepped a foot into college. Many of them, they don't speak English, but they were interested on getting certified as CalNats, right? So what I did is that I went and talked to the core director, right? Because she was bilingual, because she has experience working with Latinx youth, which I didn't, right? Again, when I moved to Riverside, I was completely new to the area. I get lost in the 60 and the 215 and whatever, right? So these are critical questions that you need to ask at that point. You know, you find whoever is your point contact in that organization that you want to partner with, and you're going to go again, like into this interview, right? So you want to learn like what they know about their community and what are some challenges that they have past, present, and future, right? So for me, for example, when I was setting up my CalNat course with the Urban Conservation Core, right on, they told me, you know, none of these kids have taken a college course, so science is going to be hard for them, right? And so then I could decide to keep going to my course and just saying like, well, then you are not qualified to take it, right? But we never want to do that. Other thing that they let me know at this process when I interviewed with this person, they were, for example, we need to pick up the kids, you know, I mean, I call them kids because I work with kids, but they were like college age students, you know, like for the core, like 25 and above. Other thing that they let me know is that they're always hungry, right? So like I needed to have snacks in my class my whole time. But this is not things that I come up. It's just like what the co-director told me, that this is how the things look like, you know? So you go like to talk to that person that might be a cultural broker. It's a formal term, but it's just someone that knows the community that you want to work with. And then you start building the relationship. And this is the type of question that I didn't went and say like, hey, you know, like director of the conservation core, I want to start a CalNat course and I want everybody to get certified and I have money to do this. I never did that. You know, I was like, hey, who works here in the core? Like, can you describe your core members for me? You know, do you know if they are documented or undocumented? Like, you know, I mean, do you know from which countries or regions or origins they come from? What are their interests, right? And she right off the table told me they only need to get a job. And so they are wanna certified as CalNats to get the job experience. They wanna learn to be how to lead these hikes. And so I was able to tailor my course to that. So again, this is a systematic process. Many of you will be like, Claudia, this is gonna take a lot of time. Yes, absolutely. You're right. You know, like, and so I don't want you to say to be today and say, like, why do I do with this, Claudia? I think the one thing that I want to show you, and again, this is not me, but we literally just took like the 75 of us around. We just take a quick round And probably at the beginning, many of you were like with 2 stars, like I don't really know where to find. I will invite you after this workshop to go back to the Jamboard. I'm going to keep it open. Seriously, I think this will be at least 50 different places that you can start to get yourself familiarized with Latinx population or any other population. This engagement research chat, you can try to use with a specific audience that you're liking. We have, and I love that Elliot acknowledged our tribal community in California. And so if that's a community that you're interested to work in it, try to do this, right? And again, you see all these things like restaurants, like Planting Justin. There's a Latino network, Villegas Park. Oh my gosh, I love Villegas Park. That's one of the favorite places that I connect with the community. So you see, there is like 1,000 things. I give you guys like 5 minutes to do this process. So it takes time, but it's also not like it's going to take you forever. You just need to be intentional. Fill the charge, then like pick one of those organizations, put it in. I use Excel, but if you want to do it in Word, just find out the mission of the organization, what they are offering programs, and then connect with one person in the organization and have that key informal interview. Again, it's a really formal thing, but we have tried. We did it. It's not only in Riverside, but it's 3 countries on California. And I can tell you that after following this process, I had like 3% of Latinos in 4-H, which is the main program that I direct. And after 3 years of following this systematic process, we increased the Latino enrollment by 645%. So this means that we have like 45 Latino youth, and then we have like 6,000. And again, I didn't do rocket science. I just follow step 1, 2, and 3, and then meet with that person and find hands that help me. So this is generally what I want you to take in mind. So, I know that you might say, Claudia, I'm just a naturalist. I'm just like a nature interpreter. I only provide volunteer service, or I'm in charge of coordinating my volunteers. What we do in the CalNat course, when you think about building a program that is successfully engaging from the ground up diverse audiences, we talk about these program elements. Right. And so the program elements think about as your CalNat syllabus, right? It has the dates that you're going to be meeting, the times that you're going to be meeting, what routine are you going to be following. So you say you have classroom instruction, but then you also have these field trips, and that's a good guide. But that in itself, it's not culturally appropriate, right? But it's not also something that is not culturally inappropriate, right? As long as it's in the language and in the literacy level that your audience has, you're going to be good with the program elements. What I want you to find out is that many of us struggle on engaging diverse audiences because our organizational infrastructure, which is the people that work at our organizations or volunteer, the professional development that we offer, the evaluation tools that we use are not appropriate, right? And so sometimes you have a capacity to change that organizational infrastructure like that. For example, for me, it was really easy to offer the class in Spanish because all my science education, I took it in Mexico, right? So I'm not asking you to be bilingual, but then you are going to build that infrastructure. Like you can call someone that is bilingual and co-teach, or you can have some pieces of the curriculum. And I'm sure if you call Greg, he will connect you to me and will be welcome to do that, right? But there is sometimes you can just need to be honest and say like, I would like to have people here, but I don't have the capacity to do this bilingually. So that's okay. But that's one area that you need to talk about. Then program and community relationships is really what we are here for, right? I mean, I think like we don't need to come out and do like 50 bilingual CalNat courses across the state. But like if we have one a year between like the 75 that we are here, I think we're going to be doing a good service to our Spanish speaking community in California. That's just some idea, right? And that's kind of the power of program and community relationships, right? You need to walk your talk, but you don't need to walk alone, particularly when it comes to Latino communities, which is my expertise. We're like a team building community. We have this community sense with this stuff together. I'm just going to throw this anecdote. Like if you invite me to any of your parties in Latino culture, with an RSVP. I can show up Claudia and my mom and my grandma and my aunt. And I was joking before the Gemini, like even your parrot or your pet, they will all come to the party that you invite me, which might not be a normal practice in the culture that you belong. But for me, it will be normal. And I can just show up to my grandma's house with 20 people and they will feed all of them, right? That's just how things are done in my culture. So that's the power of community relations up to getting to know the community, right? So for example, when I was putting this CalNat, particularly for the conservation core, I did let them know, everybody's welcome, but I need to know by this date how many students I'm going to have, and that's kind of the cultural. Yes, you can invite anybody. That's cool. but I need to have this for planning purposes, right? And so that's when you have that conversation of what that initial interview is important. So it's not one of the other, but it's you building the capacity to do this. And that's changing my conceptual framework, right? And so that's the conceptual framework is just the ways that you do things. The good news for you, and if you are here, if you finding this complicated, the next is like you want to take a photo of this. I have an article that describes this in detail, but long story short, what this slide is trying to tell you is that if you are building a course, or if you're building a program, a height, whatever level of the CalNat or the Climate Stewards Network that you are working in, it's important that whatever is the core of your program, you recognize that in order to be successful to serving like these audiences, you need to respond to economic poverty. Unfortunately, we have a lot of disparities in California. And so you need to do some adaptations in your course to make it available. And that might be giving a scholarship, providing food, providing transportation, even just having, when people enroll in the course, like giving them a hat. I work with a lot of kids, and in the photo that I showed you at the beginning, like I actually need to purchase hats for those kids or caps for the sun and sunblock because I didn't have the capacity to do it on their own. And I got donations, and that get complicated, but that's just a way, like if they're going to come to the field trip, I cannot provide shoes for everybody, but I did let them know ahead, like that they need to have sort of comfortable shoes for the long hikes, but then I'll provide the sunscreen and the hat to make sure that they're having a positive experience. I provide water, right? These tips that for us might be natural, we need to recognize that some communities, they cannot even afford them. Also, when I go with my classes to public spaces, unfortunately, many of our public spaces, communities of colors might experience discrimination before. And so I will never send them to the field without me going. And that's just because if there is an issue with a park ranger, because there is like, kind of police around and they're like trying to go behind my kids, imagine sometimes I go to the Santa Ana River watershed with 80 kids. And then like people is like, what are you doing here? Right. And so like I need to be there to be the mediator to contending with any discrimination I experience and tell them, they are part of the 4-H program. They are all with me. I am in charge. It's all my chaperones. So that way the youth doesn't feel that they are being discriminated against. And then one of the things that I do when I come the bilingual stuff, because that's one of the ways that you can support, I think, identity development. In short, what we have is that if youth doesn't see themselves in their instructors, that is going to be harder for them to pursue these career pathways, right? Or like to feel themselves engaged in the outdoor. If I go to a park and I don't see anybody like me, I'm not going to feel as welcome. I see people that look like me, right? So as I say at the beginning, I'm not afraid to throw 1 or 2 words in Spanish there just because that's my first tongue. And sometimes I just plain forgot an English word, right? And I'm always really good and open to say that it's okay. I don't expect any of you to understand my Spanish words, but sometimes I throw it in and say, like, give me a minute, I'm translating this, right? And that just makes people that dominate different languages comfortable, that it's okay to make mistakes. You see? Yeah. And even you see that some of you do that, like, perfecto, me gusta, like keep going. So anyways, the tools that I gave you, and this is the importance of it, it's only to do this first one. One of the hardest elements is to act upon the diversity of local and regional Latino youth experience. All of you know that depending on wherever you took your CalNat course or your climate stewardship course, which I always like butcher those words, but I think you know which courses I'm referring to. The harder part is to adapt it, right? We can always explain the water cycle to a community, but it's not the same how it looks in this particular watershed, like what are the indications? What is the time of the months that this happened? Where did this end, right? Versus like the Sierra Nevadas, or like even higher in our state. So the same way that we adapt the science content from our courses, we need to adapt each of the practices that we do for the diversity of our local folks. Right. And so the 3 tools that I share with you, again, I just rushed through this. I sent you already like a more detailed article that explains like what you do in next steps. I sent you a link that you can download the formats that I did, and so like this is just to focus on acting upon the diversity of local and regional Latino youth experience, right? And so my query for you guys today is not that you like memorize everything that I say. I did hope that you laugh here and there between my telenovela names and me bringing my tias to your parties, but that's just like, like a cultural piece. If you ever do invite me to a party, I just want you to be warned about it. But my hope for you all is that you recognize this, no matter which organization you take the course of, which organization you work or volunteer with, or you are like expecting to be. This is a quote that came from the field. When I was testing if these like 5 boxes that I just show you work or not, so I can have evidence-based information that this stuff works. I did this during 3 years across the whole state of California. We interviewed more than 35 organizations that were successfully engaging this population for 3 to 5 years before we interviewed them. And this is one of the youth members from this organization share with us. So I don't know if I have a brave member in the audience that wanna read this quote aloud for us since I've been talking. And yes, Lucia, right after I finish this, I can talk a little bit about Javier. So can I have a brave member of the audience unmute yourself and read the quote in the screen? I know you guys are educators, so I'm just gonna have actor silent until someone read it for me.
I think Kate raised her hand to offer to read. So Kate, you want to come off mute and go ahead and read the screen?
I believe I'm off mute. Is that correct? Am I off mute?
We can hear you loud and clear. Go ahead.
Okay, super. I mean, there's a lot of nice things about name of organization. Free food, meet a lot of people, a bunch of community service hours. But the main reason I stay is because, well, I personally feel like there's a difference when you see other people doing it. But when you're doing something, that changes. And also when you have friends that you see and you look up to and are like, hey, that's cool. I want to do this too. It's a good feeling knowing that what you're doing is benefiting people in the long run.
Wow. So thank you so much. And thank you so much, Kate. I can tell by your voice that you're a great interpreter and you're like an engaging presenter. But it could be great that, like, you know, that I can say, I mean, there is a lot of nice things about the urban conservation core in the Inland Empire, you know, like free food. And again, like that's exactly like a quote from one of the persons that I interviewed when I told her, like, hey, why did you come to this program? What is so exciting about this, right? And so my hope for you guys is that whatever organization you take the course, you work, you volunteer with, at the end of the day, your participants, they can do that, right? I think we all, like, for me, this is the ultimate measure of success. If you're working with a new diverse population and at the end of your course, at the end of your hike, at the end of whatever program you do, but if it's like 1 hour like me together with you guys, you know, I cannot send you guys free foods through the Zoom, but when I do a training, I usually have like a food component, even if I need to get like a ton of donations from my local grocery store for that or my local community garden. We want everybody to feel that, you know. I think for me, that's the ultimate measure of whatever we're doing is making a difference. And when I have a kid, especially that is like, I want to do this, that's when I know that my hike like connect this person with nature, right? That most likely he's going to come back and get certified, you know, in 2, 3, 5 years, depending what age they are. And that most importantly, when they go out in the community after my program, they're going to be able to really be a stewards for our community. They will really value the natural resources that we have in California, enjoy it, but also take care of them. So that's my hope for you guys, that when you go out of this tools, you are able to do that. So what are the next steps? We have around like 14 minutes. So I'm stealing 1 minute from your discussions to talk about with the things that I just shared. I see in the chat, some people is telling you like buen trabajo, which means your job, or muy interesante, muchas gracias, which is too interested, like thank you. I want you guys, whatever level you have in the organization, to pick whether it's like a personal thing, you know, again, if you're a volunteer, it might be just a personal task, you know, and it could be like, even from the beginning of the session, I'm going to link into the tribal link that Brooke shared in the chat and, you know, find out who is in my community. Or I'm going to go back into the Jamboard and see like who else like added stuff, you know, like, and see if there's some places that I can look. Even if you were the only one from Alameda, go into the Bay Area and say there's like, if there are similar organizations. I know there is some organizations that covers regional level. But if you're a program director, if you do have decision making, if you manage budgets, if you're like an instructor, there is many stuff that you can do at the organizational level. And that if you're that, I'm going to challenge you and say like, let's just have a private conversation this offline, you know? And then just sit and really look into your current practices and see if any of the stuff that I did with my CalNet course might apply to yours, right? Or if you're just a family member and a PTA, you want to do just like a cultural event for your community, or if you are already doing an Earth Day, you know, as part of your like volunteer activities, and you want to kind of have like add more diversity to it, I want you right now to take like 1 minute to write down what's the next step. You can keep it to yourself or you can share it in the chat. Whatever you would like. Again, lots of information. Elliot warned you that it was gonna like kind of full deep. I tried to scramble like 3 hours workshop into an hour. So I apologize if I take so much of your energy. But my one thing besides what you commit is that you do recognize that it takes a village. You know, I have had a lot of success engaging Latino audiences, but I have a whole team of coordinators, staff, volunteer, researchers, and Frank, quite honestly, like a lot of money that support our Latino initiative when we were doing this, right? So I don't want you to feel lost. I want you to have one thing that you can work in and have influence, because that's when you reclaim your power, no matter where the organization is. And once you reclaim your power, I want you to be okay with where you're at, you know, because it takes a village to engage diverse audiences from the ground up. It takes work, but I really appreciate you, like, you know, just to be here, you know. And for me, my personal motivation is like these kiddos, you know, like I want them that after they go with me in any program, whether it's through 4-H or to CalNat, they go out with a smiles. Again, there is a bunch of reference for this work, so I'm happy to provide it if you want to do it more in detail. But overall, I just want to say thank you. You know, you take your whole launch to just sit through this. And so I miss the in-person interaction, so I to listen to any of this of you, but I know that I'm going to enjoy reading the Jamboard and see where you are at this time. So I'm going to stop it there. And again, thank you for your attention. And we can transition now, Elliot.
Yeah, first of all, that was amazing. Absolutely amazing. I did want to acknowledge what Lizette said in the chat, which Lizette is associated through the Southern California Mountains Foundation, where if you're willing to show up and you're willing to do the work, and kind of combining her two thoughts, which was show up and do the work, and also keep an open mind, open, not only just an open mind, but open to other people's experience and point of view. That's the best way to you know, bridge that gap for community and culture. So we did have a couple, we had one question that really stood out, discussing how to accomplish these goals during COVID, which is, you know, still on everyone's mind. And then if we don't have any other questions, I have a few questions I could pop in. But I was wondering if you wanted to address that. How have you been able to accomplish this type of work in the light of COVID?
Definitely. And I think if Lisette is in the call, Lisette, I don't want to put you in the spot, but you were like a critical partner while doing so. So the first time that we discoursed bilingually was in person. And that was way more easier to, like, you know, me teaching English, I have someone in Spanish, or for me to go back and forth, but Zoom sometimes I have a hard time. And so, but Lisette was the one like side by the core members. So if she's still here, Lisette, and if you want to open your mic, I'll give you like a minute to see, like, you know, how do you work with our core members through like using Zoom, through texting them, to everything you do, because you know you are the core of us being successful. Let me see if she's here.
Yeah, so I'm not gonna lie and say that it was easy. It was a lot of work just trying to coordinate, trying to get everyone on Zoom. Again, a lot of these, the youth that we work with don't have a lot of experience using technology, and so it was just hard enough trying to get them on Zoom and then getting them familiarized with it. But I think it's like, again, just putting in the work and realizing that it is going to take time, especially during COVID, and then trying to make it engaging so that they keep coming back. Because a lot of times they're like, oh, I don't want to do it anymore. Like, we've been sitting in class like for a few hours and it's too much. So it's just keeping it engaging, giving them some breaks and telling them, hey, like, you know, it's going to be fun. Playing some music in the background always helps. Giving them stretching breaks and stuff. So it was a little bit challenging, but we were able to get it done. Again, as long as you're able to just try to make it as fun as possible, I think it'll work out.
And Lizette, can you talk a little bit about your strategies, like the cafecito, you know, for the readings and kind of all those cultural aspects, because some people is curious about that?
Yeah, so since everyone it's required to read the CalNat book, what we would do is we would have cafecito in the mañanas. So basically it was like having coffee in the morning. So we'd invite people to bring their coffee, bring their pastries or their pan or something like that. And then we'd all read the book together, and then we'd have breakout sessions, and then we'd have discussions and kind of just make it somewhat of a fun activity. So that's one of the biggest portions that we included in there. And then also being able to talk about what are some of the things that we noticed in the book, or what are some of the things that we noticed that might translate better into Spanish, or stuff like that. So it was just acknowledging, giving those open spaces for them to be able to express themselves culturally as well.
Yeah. And I think the one tip that I have to add, especially with Zoom and COVID, is just like plan ahead, like, I mean, I'm seriously, like Lisette is a key member. Like she's the one texting the students, like texting like every morning, student by student, like, hey, we have Zoom in half an hour, make sure you show up, and sometimes I will have students that you have like their big hair, or they are still in the bed, but they log on into the phone, because it takes a village, it takes an opportunity, particularly with the work with the youth that we work, right? I mean, you might have like super engaging students, that are already like college graduates, and they're just doing this for fun, and they're completely committed. But the audiences are like, my passion is really bringing in the people that normally couldn't come to a course, right? So like that being said, of course, we have grants through the Southern California Mountain Foundations where our CalNat participants don't pay a penny. We provide the books. Again, we provide translation services when needed. So hope that's helpful. I don't know if anybody has any follow-up questions.
Nothing much in the chat. I did want to kind of circle back to that idea of cafecito en la mañana, and really just making it culturally relevant is what I'm hearing coming from that conversation. So yeah, absolutely amazing. I did want to touch really briefly, just because it's been so amazing to have this be a part of our program, just even us being associated with what you guys did at Southern California Mountains Foundation. Can you speak briefly to the Los Naturalistas, the first bilingual course, CalNat course in existence? Do you mind talking about that?
No, I mean, again, Lisette, feel free to add anything, but I think it was Lisette's idea, right? Like, we have, for me, the science content that we're always trying to push from the university, but how really spark it is like, I have a grant to take Latino youth into the outdoors from low-income communities. And a lot of my research like mirrors that, like ethnic identity, how do we provide bilingual services? How can we make this an inviting environment for the kids? How can safely take a kid to a watershed when they have never gone into the river, or when the last time that we went into the river, their family got yelled at because they were polluting, right? Or because the water was not safe. And so I call Parks and Services, I call, like, Erin is in the call, I call our Riverside Corona Resource Conservation District. And I was like, guys, what are you offering? Do you have the thing? And they were like, we don't have bilingual stuff at the moment, but they have this intern that is bilingual, like you can trade, right? So again, it was building of those community partnerships. And I was like, I just want like someone that can do a bilingual hiking, and cannot make it culturally relevant. And we don't have those places. And for me, Riverside and San Bernardino counties are 60%, like almost 60% of Latinos. So it was for me hard to believe that we couldn't have the services. But then when I work with my communities, with my water districts, natural resource district, our campuses, when I was hired in the university, my position has been open for 3 years. And the university was trying to hire someone that was bilingual, bicultural, and a master's degree. And that's apparently an impossible combination. Like growing up in Mexico, I is one of the 1% Latinas that holds a master's degree, right? And then I don't even work in Mexico. I came to the US because it's a really cool job, right? But it's just, again, that infrastructure, right? Do you really need a master's degree to have someone that leads a hike, right? Or what are the training that you're offering? So that's really what sparked it, right? I mean, I work with mostly younger folks. And then I was like, if I need to become a CalNat instructor to make this available in my region, I will. Right. And then I bring Lisette under the door and say, like, Lisette, I can teach the science, but I cannot be the traditional one-on-one interaction that you have with the people in your courses, right? Like, I was just honest, like, I can handle the science, but I need you to work with the COM members. I need you to remind them about this. I need you like to sit with them in the cafecito so they do the reading, because when they come to class, they need to be prepared like any other of my students, right? So that's what I mean with the power of partnerships. And so that's why we have Los Naturalistas, because they are CalNat instructors, but there is so much more to that. If I only have the typical instructor that give the syllabus and then expect the students to come and do the job, it's never going to happen, at least not in Riverside and San Bernardino. If you are in the Bay Area, if you are in a region like LA that has a lot of Latino professionals, you might have it easier in that sense, right? But as Lisette was saying, I mean, she models with example, like she is like there by the side. She texts me, she lets me know. Oftentimes, Lisette and I, she's like, Claudia, we plan for this, but we can't. And then I need to say, fine, let's just replan. And Elliot knows they never receive our syllabus until the end of the course because it seriously changes almost every week. But I, it's that flexibility. They trust me enough that I'm gonna get the science done. But then they start with like 12 sessions and we might end with 18 sessions, because someone didn't start the water cycle and I spent 45 minutes just like going again to evaporation, and all those stuff. So I hope that speaks a little bit. So that's what we call it the Naturalistas, because it's the course that you all might be part of and teach. But then we have the cultural aspects, the field trips, like all the adaptations for these students to be successful.
Yes, we have about a minute and a half left. I wanted to, first of all, say thank you so much on behalf of the entire CalNat crew and all of our naturalists and stewards. This was absolutely amazing. You should go back and read the comments about how amazing it was. I did want to offer one piece of advice to people looking to get materials translated, because that's what we hear about all the time. And a really good resource is reaching out to community colleges and colleges that have a a degree in Spanish, whether it's literature, translation, you name it. A lot of times the students are looking for experience and possible work. So that's a really good resource that I've used before. We're just about out of time. I had one last question for you. What, if any, is there any type of professional development or any kind of training that people can attend, any organizations that you can recommend for anyone?
Oh my gosh, you guys are awesome. So yes, if Brooke, you can help me. I'm gonna ask them just to put in the chat. I have what I call the professional development tracker. And that's just like an opportunity for you guys to get into my database. I do have a 6-week series that is a cultural competence series that's just not only Latino, but just help you explore your own culture and kind of build that cultural humility that you need to be successful working with people from different backgrounds. And so I offer that once a year, usually when in partnership with now of our water districts, but I'm happy to open it for you guys. So if you fill the professional development tracker, then I can keep you updated of those. I also do tailored training for your organization. So like if you call me and say, Claudia, I have like 3 hours, in my professional development training, can you repeat this presentation? I'm able to do that. And again, once you click the link, you will have access to my email, my newsletter, you can find my faculty website in the university and connect to me directly. So again, you don't need to fill it because it's one already, but like if you want to keep in contact and updated for other training that I can offer to your organization, again, this is just like a squish to open your eyes about like how the real diversity work can be done. But definitely like, there is a lot of research behind it, and I can do like the 6 sessions for you, or even just like a 3-hour workshop to sit with your staff and have them fill the log and, have this conversation, which is really what help you be successful in the future. You are in mute, Elliot, but thank you.
The whole time spotting it. I put the evaluation in the chat. So naturalists and stewards, please fill it out so we can continue to provide this and make any adjustments. Once again, Claudia, thank you so much. This was absolutely amazing. Thank you for everyone for attending. And we hope to see you all on the next cones. Thank you, Claudia.